So there have now been several updates from OpenAI in an effort to satisfy angry users in the wake of the launch of GPT-5 a week ago. Is OpenAI too online, and does OpenAI need to log off? The floor is yours. Your thoughts.
Well, who is OpenAI, I think, is the question. It is a real concern that I have for the company, to be totally honest. I think being a consumer product maker is really, really hard. And it's hard for all sorts of different reasons. One of them is that if you make a change, if you're a billion user company and you make a change that affects 1% of users negatively, that's 10 million users.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people that can be very vocal and can make themselves heard very, very loudly. And I think there's a certain approach to effective consumer product leaders. And here we go back to Mark Zuckerberg, the seminal moment. Like, I always like to talk about the history of tech companies because there's usually often a moment early on that defines everything about the company going forward. For Facebook, that was the introduction of the newsfeed. You start out with Facebook, it's just profile pages, and you have to like click around to all your friends to see what they're up to. They come out with a newsfeed where all those updates are in one place and you can see it all. And people lost their freaking mind. There were online like petitions. They had actual physical protesters in Palo Alto outside their offices.
Oh my God.
They had to like issue this mealy mouth statement about blah, blah, blah. You know, we respect that. And they didn't change a thing. They doubled down because what they did is they looked at the data and they saw that people freaking loved it. They were on there all the time. There was actually a replay of this when Instagram shifted from the algorithmic timeline to the interest-based timeline, 2016, 2017, somewhere around there.
There was been a replay of something like that with every major change that Facebook has made over the last 10 years. Facebook, including Instagram in that umbrella.
Right. That was another one. By that point, I think they were more hard. And they're like, right away, they're like, actually, our user numbers show that engagement is up by like 50%. So
right.
We're not changing anything.
You guys are screaming into the void. Good luck.
But early, you know, it's impossible to get good signal from the masses online. And I've told this story. I had to learn this with Stratechery. You know, early you get, especially when you start, you're so eager. People are sharing my stuff on Twitter and people are responding to you and you're replying. And at some point I realized that number one, it's always the same people replying.
Yeah.
And number two, my user numbers and readers are increasing rapidly. By definition, there's a total mismatch between who I'm hearing from online, which is constrained and not really growing, and the people that are actually enjoying and consuming my content. And I need to be super careful about not over-indexing or paying too much attention to the loudest people on Twitter.
Totally. I'm the same way. I mean, I had the same experience writing, and I also sometimes have to step back and say, well, would I ever write angry feedback to a writer that I enjoy and read every day? And would I ever comment?
Andrew, I am a listener of the GOAT podcast where you recount, what is this, getting JJ Redick's AOL handle.
That's true.
Every day to taunt him and troll him.
Wow. Just nailed me. So yes, when I was 16 years old, I was a big North Carolina basketball fan, and I did acquire JJ Redick's AOL Instant Messenger screen name, and I harassed him on a daily basis because he had his away message up and was online all day. Eventually did have a conversation with JJ where we traded insults in real time. It was great. But I'm saying, as an adult, I'm not going to be lurking in the comments section.
When did the adult line cross? Because I feel you told another anecdote on GOAT, like 2 episodes later, about just emailing and harassing someone online.
No. Somebody else was trying to do that, and I advised that person not to email Jonathan Kaminga's agent and tell him what a horrible job he's doing because he's an adult. And he's not 16 years old. And I said at the time, I would have done this when I was 16 years old.
Well, the problem is there's that old New Yorker cartoon on the internet. Everyone is a dog. what you're saying is, sorry, no, I got it totally wrong, man. I butchered that. The dog is sitting at the computer on the internet. You don't know if you're talking to a dog. Whatever. You don't know if you're
Or
talking
an
to a
AI
16-year-old. Is
bot.
the point
Yeah,
I'm getting to? Yes, exactly. Or yes, my
exactly.
AI bot replies on Twitter today.
Well, and I'll tell you why I asked the question, is OpenAI too online? Does OpenAI need to log off? And of course, we could just be talking about Sam Altman being too online and Sam Altman needing to log
Oh,
off.
they're all very online.
They're very online. I had seen a former OpenAI employee talk about, a couple months ago about how attuned they are to the conversation on Twitter and how conscious they are of the way they're discussed on Twitter.
It was funny. Sam Altman and Elon Musk had like a cat fight this week, or slap fight, or whatever it is, and it was funny because I had to write an update about ChatGPT 5, and I had to link to like 18 Sam Altman tweets because he's like on there all the time. So yes, I totally know what you're talking about.
Well, and you also had to do an update 12 hours later because they updated the model and the layout menu for everybody. And in terms of GPT-5 and what they announced last week, this is a topic where my sensibilities as a tech normie can actually be pretty useful because I'm the target customer for OpenAI, not you. They want me and people like me to love their product. And as I was reading your GPT-5 article on Wednesday, I hit a point where I just threw up my hands and was like, you got to be effing kidding me. You had a screenshot of the legacy models list they have. Let me pull it up here. Hold on. It's a GPT-4o, GPT 4.5, O3, O3 Pro, O4 Mini, GPT 4.1, GPT 4.1 Mini. And they have little explanations for what each model does. And you wrote, as best I can tell, GPT 5 Pro is akin to O3 Pro, now with proper capitalization, you put in parentheses, and GPT-5 Thinking is akin to O3. I immediately defaulted to GPT-5 Thinking, in line with the fact that O3 has been my go-to model for several months now. I'm sitting there as a normal person, Ben, reading that. All of it may as well be Sanskrit to me. It's just completely out of control.
Oh no, are you outing yourself as a 4.0 user?
I'm not a 4.0 user. I use whatever GPT chooses for me. I open the app and put in my question and get an answer
yes,
back.
You're outing yourself as a 4.0 user.
Perhaps I am. I don't know, but I'm a pro subscriber or a plus subscriber, excuse me.
Yes.
It's amazing to me.
For the record, I offered you pro. You turned it down. So.
You did, and eventually I had to ratchet down to plus because I was like, I'm not using this enough to justify the expense. It's amazing to me that ChatGPT succeeded despite that confusion, and GPT-5 is an effort to make those choices much simpler for mainstream users, which is a great idea. And so to the extent they keep updating it and now further complicating the menu, it just seems crazy to me. And it seems like they're listening way too much to a very small group of angry power users on Twitter.
Yeah, I'm actually personally very annoyed. Like, now, I am a pro user, and I didn't use O3 Pro, but I used O3 basically exclusively, and so no limits there was great. Amazing model. I actually think GPT-5 Thinking significant step up on O3 Pro or on O3.
Okay.
So I'm very pleased with this release. But yeah, now we have Auto, decides how long to think, Fast, instant answers, Thinking Mini, thinks quickly, Thinking, thinks longer for better answers, Pro, research grade intelligence. And not only that, but the original launch had GPT-5 Thinking, all capitalized, by the way. GPT-5, it was so clean. It made me happy to go to the model picker and pick out my model. I'm like, this is such a breath of fresh air after the ridiculousness before, and they've totally backtracked. I find it very upsetting from an aesthetic perspective. But yeah, but is it because they were too? This is the big question I have. If you're what Facebook learned, you have to launch with a point of view and then iterate. You have to have data feedback loops and base your decision making on that. Sometimes you do have to wind stuff back because the data shows like, oh, we really screwed this one up. And by the way, that's something you might miss on social media also. maybe it's the case the normies are deserting, but all the nerds love it. And so you're hearing praise, but actually your product usage is falling through the floor. Oh,
Yeah.
there's a perfect example of this. I can't think what it is off the top of my head. Some startup, whatever, basically killed themselves chasing like Twitter likes, and like everyone just sort of like abandoned it. And so
You
that's
could also
the
look
key
at the
to
last
consumer.
15 years of media as an example of how that strategy can
Right.
go
Yeah.
wrong.
Writing to Twitter likes. Yes. And so did OpenAI, was there a real shift in data? And like,
Mhm.
we screwed up. We need to fix this. That's what I don't know. If there was, then all this backtracking and changes, re-adding GPT-4o, adding back all these choices. Now there is one decision they made that was a very bad one, which we should get to in a moment. So let me table that to use some corporate speak. But if it was data driven, then fine. I get it. Good job. You had you took a risk. People didn't like it. You backtracked. I get it. But if it was a lot of people were mad online, that makes me very worried about your sort of constitutional capability to be an effective consumer app, which is to go out, have a point of view, make decisions, and be able to ignore the blowback because it's the right thing to do for the broader audience. And what GPT-5 was, I think it was right for the normie. It kills me that I'm sure I told you to use a O3, and yet you were opening up the app and just using 4.0. And 4.0 stinks. And it stinks not just because it's an older model and super optimized, so it's like, so they can run it cheaply and all those sorts of things. It doesn't think. Now, here we're using think in the AI term. Yes, it's anthropomorphized, but we're going to stick with it because I'm going to keep saying it. I don't want to try to fix myself. But if they, and this is the weird thing about sort of the progression of models. It's like, it's been 2 years since GPT-4. Like, to me, it's been 6 months since O3. Which was is an incredible model, and the quality of output that it gets is so superior to what you were getting from 4.0 sort of before then, and no one was trying this. Number one, free users didn't have access to it. Number two, plus users like you, they mostly just wanted, they didn't want to get hit by limits or whatever it might be. Who knew to go in there and pick out, especially because O3 you're just is like a lower number than 4.0. It's like what's even going on here? And so putting people in this, you're going to get your default experience is going to, at times, use a thinking model when it thinks it's appropriate, and it's going to make that sort of better. That is so clearly a better route for the normie, and it's still the default, but it's definitely sort of softened and whatever it might be.
Yeah, let me put a finer point on it for anybody who's not familiar with what was initially changed. Ethan Malik writes, a surprising number of people have never seen what AI can actually do because they're stuck on GPT 4.0 and don't know which of the confusingly named models are better. GPT-5 does away with this by selecting models for you automatically. GPT-5 is not one model as much as it is a switch that selects among multiple GPT-5 models of various sizes and abilities. When you ask GPT-5 for something, the AI decides which model to use and how much effort to put into quote unquote thinking. It just does it for you. For most people, this automation will be helpful, and the results might even be shocking because having only used default older models, they will get to see what a reasoner can accomplish on hard problems. And so as a user, I digest that with relief because I don't want the mental burden of having to know what each model does and means and having to determine whether I'm using the right model.
Ear lecturing you about how to use your computer. It's
exactly. OpenAI, do it for me. You have my trust. And it seemed like that's what they recognized with the GPT-5 launch. And now it's all muddled and they've backtracked. And it's not, you can still have it on auto for GPT-5, but
it's not as clean. It's not as clearly the default. Now, where they did really screw up, and this was a major screw up that I think made all this so much worse, because there's a bit where they might have done some stuff that was changes, and people always get upset at change. Yeah. But if it's intermingled with stuff you did that was actually wrong, it kind of gives validity to the whole thing, right? It's like the reason why I was not to get political, I was so anti-vaccine mandate for the COVID stuff was because I'm like, the problem is you're risking all the other vaccines.
Yeah.
By like conflating them all together, right? And so there's a bit, and so people, and why do like conspiracy theories spiral? Because someone like, as soon as like the myocarditis news came out, which all in all the numbers are still quite low, but suddenly it gives all these anti-vaccine cranks a point about which they were right, which then legitimizes all their other stuff about which they're not right, right?
Right. And I think the issue with COVID was the vaccine wasn't 100% necessary for anybody who was under 60 or 65.
They were mandating people who had already had COVID to get the vaccine, which if you know
right.
two things about what a vaccine is, it was nonsensical, right?
And so the skeptics can then say all these other vaccines also aren't necessary, and they're pushing it on you. And it has in fact mushroomed and become a much bigger problem over the last several years.
Exactly. And so that was a very weird analogy for this bit about the release. If you were a Plus user like you, who most of the Plus users complaining probably should have been Pro users. That's kind of the subtext of this, because they're like,
if you're nerdy enough to care,
because you had access to, you had like 200, I think, O3 queries a week. Then you had like some number of O4 mini queries a day, and a greater number of O4 mini queries a day. All these are thinking models. The point is, you had around 2,000 or 2,100, I think, or 2,900. I think it was 2,900. You had around 2,900 thinking queries a week. Now, you had to be a nerd and be clicking your model, changing it all the time to like stay in your limit. Like I said, you should have just got GPT Pro, to be honest, or you should have got the Pro level. But when GPT-5 launched, suddenly Plus subscribers got 200 thinking queries, and then prayed to the model router gods that GPT-5 would route you to a thinking model. That was crap behavior. You dramatically took away stuff from paying subscribers.
You're diminishing the value of the $20 a month.
You cannot do that. You can't take stuff away. That was bad. It was a huge mistake. Why they made that mistake, I think, is very interesting. But that was in the midst of all these other complaints, and it gave validity to all the complaints. And so that's why, to me, that mistake is super interesting. Why do you take queries away from people? Well, it's expensive and you don't have enough GPUs. Guess who's been saying OpenAI is making a big mistake in their consumer business by not having enough GPUs?
Several years.
You wanted to be right to her, right? Like they launched GPT-5 on the API the same time they launched it in ChatGPT. That meant they had to limit capacity somehow. They sacrificed these nerdy Plus users on the altar of an API that is going to be subject to intense competition, and they hurt their core, the real product, the real value, which is ChatGPT, to do it. Massive error. And the problem with this is this a company that can make hard decisions? To be a good consumer tech company, you have to make hard decisions. ChatGPT was an accident. We watched it. It's usually they're the accidental tech company. Right. Do they have it in it? Is Sam Altman the personification of 4.0? A little bit too eager to please, a little bit too eager to make people happy, not willing to sort of like draw the line and tell them the way it's going to be. Like, these are the questions I have coming out of this. I think ChatGPT 5 was in the right direction. It's clearly building to an advertising sort of model. When you start routing, you can route to all sorts of things. You can, if a user makes a query, Semi-Analysis had a great piece on this week. If the user makes a super high value query that like they're asking about legal stuff, for example, which might result in a referral to a lawyer, guess what? Spend the time to do a really good answer at the end, have affiliate links to like lawyers or whatever it might be, right? Like they're building the groundwork for this ad supported model or affiliate supported model that is going to deliver. And for free users, it's going to be such a better product because they get the best model with the best thinking at the time that it's appropriate, and they don't have to pay for it. It's great. But you gotta make trade-offs. Can they make any trade-offs at all?
Totally. Well, and I think you mentioned in your piece, Google and Apple give customers what they want, but they don't ask customers what they want. And it seemed like there was some back and forth with the customer base that left the product in a more muddled place.
GPT-5 was pretty ballsy. What they did. Just like this is the way it's going to be. We're dramatically simplifying it. We're going to make choices
it was
for
ballsy,
you.
but elegant and smart.
Exactly. No, I think it was the right thing to do. And then they bail on it in
less than a week. It's
I wake up at
wild.
4:58. 4:50 a.m. I look at my phone. Oh, they totally changed this. Cancel my distributions. Be like, just churn out a whole extra update at the end of my update.
Like I said, it's been a busy week, man.
Yeah,